Good evening. We'd like to welcome the Board of Directors agenda meeting for February 11, 2025. This is an opportunity to review the agenda for our former board meeting that will take place on February the 18th. We will now have a presentation from the Progressive League of College Station by Mr. Dexter Doan, also a member of the Little Rock Port Authority Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Mayor, and to our Board of Directors. I am Dexter Doan. I am a board member of the Progressive League of College Station, and we serve as a neighborhood association for the College Station community. And we want to thank you for the opportunity for this presentation to bring to you an initiative that hopefully will save some lives in our College Station community. I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation that I'll go through and then be ready to answer any questions that you all might have. And let's see. Okay, I clicked the button. Oh. Okay, I'm still clicking. Okay, and what you see here, Mayor and Directors, is a traffic count that Pulaski County conducted for the College Station community. As you all know, there's tremendous growth in the port industrial area with Amazon and other industries bringing hundreds, if not thousands of jobs to the Little Rock area. And that is a great thing, that the Progressive League is in support of that. However, a lot of those thousands of people, including 18-wheelers and dump trucks, travel right through the heart of our College Station community. And I want to go back for a minute. Yeah, on the traffic count, you can barely see the numbers, but collectively, there's almost 14,000 vehicles going through our small community each and every day, going back and forth to the port industrial area. And now, I don't have a pointer, but in Foresight, the City Board of Directors several years ago approved an initiative to create a brand new road, Rimmel Road, that is in the yellow, and it exits off of Interstate 440, and that was for handling the traffic that's now going in through our community. However, instead of traffic going on the new street that you all paid for, they're coming, see the red dash lines? That is the Bankhead Drive Airport exit off of 440. And what a lot of that traffic is doing is cutting right through our community, coming down Bankhead Drive, making a left turn on Fraser Pike, and going out to the port industrial area. And here's, there's been steps taken to circumvent this heavy traffic. There are signs posted right there near the Waffle House and the gas station, no through trucks. However, those signs are totally being ignored by these vehicles. Now, how many of you have ever been to the College Station community, know where it is, familiar with it? Good, good. As you know, College Station is governed by two bodies. The western two-thirds of the community is under Pulaski County jurisdiction. The eastern third is on the City of Little Rock. So the county has an ordinance to prevent these trucks from coming through, and there's a dollar penalty that goes along with it, but obviously it's being ignored. As you can see that there's an 18-wheeler there on Fraser Pike, ignoring the signs. Okay, I pushed the button. There's an 18-wheeler there at, go back to the yellow one. Okay. Okay, I'll just cue you then. Cue you, all right. 18-wheeler that's at the intersection of Fraser Pike and Bankhead Drive. So that truck just got off at the freeway exit, and it's making a left turn on Fraser Pike, heading east towards the port area. Next slide. When they turn, headed east on Fraser, they drive right past our College Station Elementary School. Next slide. And here's Fraser Pike as you approach the port area. And you can see that our streets needs a lot of improvement. We don't have any curb and gutter. That's a huge open ditch there on Fraser Pike. And if you're a pedestrian and facing one of these big trucks, you have nowhere to go except into the truck or into the ditch. Next slide. And this is really an interesting one. This is an Amazon truck who obviously didn't know his way through the community. On that night, he got stuck crossways, Fraser Pike, blocking traffic going in both ways, and that situation remained there for several hours. Next slide. And it did a lot of damage to the adjacent property, but to Amazon's credit, when it was brought to their attention, they did make the landscape repairs. Next slide. That's the last slide, okay. So that concludes our PowerPoint presentation. And we have been enduring this situation really ever since Amazon came to Little Rock several years ago. And the Progressive League realized that we needed to do something about this situation before someone is killed or severely injured. So in March of last year, the Progressive League created a petition to protest the heavy truck traffic. And we have gathered over 500 signatures supporting this initiative. And we identify the problem and we offer solutions. Our problems, obviously, is that this heavy traffic creates a safety hazard, noise pollution, air quality degradation, infrastructure damage to our streets, negative economic impact, because who wants to move to our community with that kind of detriment going on? So we are petitioning Pulaski County and the city of Little Rock to do a few things. Number one, we'd like increased signage to prevent truck traffic from coming through the community. We'd like additional traffic calming measures to be installed, such as more speed bumps and signage. We'd like to collaborate with the local law enforcement to enforce laws that are in place to prevent this from happening. And you know, on one occasion when the mayor was first elected to office, he came out on one of his community ward walks. He had the chief of police with him, a police escort, flashing lights, and he still almost got ran over with our group because of the traffic that was coming through, ignoring these signs. Now, Pulaski County, we made the same presentation to Pulaski County. In your package is a ordinance. Well, first there's a resolution from them to enforce an ordinance that they already have in place that will carry fines and penalties for heavy truck traffic that's going through the College Station community. However, and they're on standby to start enforcing this. However, since our community is split between two governing bodies, we, the Progressive League, feel that it's important that we get the City of Little Rock Board of Directors on board with our initiative too. So one thing that we think may be an easy fix would be for the Board of Directors to adopt the Pulaski County ordinance that's already in place. And if that's not proper procedure, maybe our attorney Carpenter can create a document that can be enforced to prevent this from happening. But the main reason that we're here is that the Progressive League feels it's just a matter of time before someone is killed or hurt, and then it'll be too late to do anything about saving that life. So we beg for your consideration. We beg that some action will be taken and that you all will support what we're trying to do in the College Station community. Also, I see that our president of the Progressive League of College Station is here, Mr. Austin Porter Jr., and our executive director, Ms. Gloria Dozier, is here, and I'll answer any questions or yield the remainder of my time to our executives.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, do appreciate the presentation and the recognition of the split governments within College Station. Just a few different things. I do think if you will email us or John Honeywell the areas where you would like the signage on the City of Little Rock side, I know in 21, when we went on the walk, we put 4 or 5, maybe 7 speed cushions. I wish you would have had the
It was 4. It was 4,
I wish
yeah.
we'd had the picture of those speed cushions. No, I'm just joking. But but we do know that did come with some consternation too. But if there is a particular location where you would like those speed cushions on the City of Little Rock side, if you'll just notate that in the email as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll yield any remaining time I
We got a
have to
few more
our-
questions from.
Questions, okay. For me or for,
Well, did Mr. Porter or Ms. Gloria wanted to speak?
Good afternoon, everyone. Austin Porter Jr. on behalf of the Progressive League of College Station. As an attorney, I got enough work to do, so we are trying to prevent any kind of accidents or deaths that occur, and we just hope that we can get something done. I think I keep Mr. Carpenter pretty busy as well, so I don't need any additional work. Thank you.
Ms. Gloria, did you want to say anything?
No, I think Mr. Dorn covered it.
We're grateful for Mr. Doan and grateful for every member of leadership with the Progressive League. Director Adcock?
Yes. Mr. Doran, when I was recently out at College Station at Apple Blossom, I was amazed at all the young children out there. And that was a subdivision that the City of Little Rock started in your community. The buses do not, some of them do not go down in that subdivision, but they sit up there on that street waiting for the children to walk up there. And of course, children's walking up there to catch the bus, and the traffic was just like this out there. So I'd like for you to discuss some about the children.
yes, ma'am, and that's our primary reason here. As Director Adcock said, there's a bus stop right there on Fraser Pike in the entrance to Apple Blossom. There's a hill that hides some of your vision when you're going east or west. And so oftentimes when these large trucks, as you know, when these 18-wheelers and dump trucks get their speed up, they cannot stop on a dime. And oftentimes the bus is there stopped picking up children. These trucks come over that hill and they have to come to a screeching halt to prevent from having an accident. And we just don't want anything like that to happen, Director Adcock.
Thank you. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we have staff look at this and come back to us next week with something that we could vote on to join the county in making this happen for College Station.
Thank you. As you know, we can't do a motion in this meeting, but we'll make certain staff gets to work on some items.
Thank you.
Just as a which means it'd be sent out Friday, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Director Miller?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Virgil Dawn, for this presentation and your staff, and the rest of the. That's his name, Virgil Dexter Dawn. Yeah, he just goes by Dexter. I appreciate you doing this. As you know, I've come to several of your meetings, and this is always an issue that's come up. And so, certainly, I encourage you, come before the full board. You just don't need to hammer on me, because I certainly support a resolution similar to what the county has done to try to slow this traffic down or really get rid of this traffic. And certainly, before I got on the board, this Rimmel Road exit, I noticed that there was no traffic count on trucks that use that exit. And is there another issue with that? There's a railroad track that is in use, that if a truck exits there and it's a railroad, it's a train using the track, then they're stuck there. So that may have been maybe an oversight when we developed this exit to maybe even try to deal with that, because maybe that's why trucks aren't using this exit. So maybe there's a longer term play on this also, because I think the city did, and of course this is before my time, spend $1 million+ for that exit, or whatever the cost was.
3 million.
3 million.
Yeah.
But didn't address that railroad crossing. So we may need to take a look at that too. And I know you've had conversations with Brian Day and the port, and have they expressed their support of something like this also?
Yes, they have. Matter of fact, I think this board just approved a traffic study to try to come up with an alternate exit plan or overpass there at the Lindsay Road and Fish Dam exit so that the trains will not hold up the traffic. And you're exactly right, Director Miller, in that the drivers have learned that if they take that Bankhead exit and Fraser Pike, they don't have to deal with any railroad tracks or anything like that to stop them. Plus, they have the right-of-way on Fraser Pike too, as it intersects other streets that cut through the community.
Yeah, so I'm very supportive of this. I mean, you laid out 5 points that you'd like to see the city consider. I'd love for us to take a look at that and see what we can do as it relates to these points. I'm like you, I don't want to see some terrible accident and then everybody saying we should have done something.
Correct.
The time to do something is now, as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm supportive of this, trying to get some ordinance done, trying to get more signage out, and trying to do whatever we can to keep these heavy trucks from going through this residential neighborhood. I think it's extremely important. And I appreciate that, that the association has gotten together and that you would take some time out to come and make this presentation. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Director Hines?
Thank you, Dexter. Get back up here, man. Hey, no, I'll be very supportive of this and a few other things I think that, because this getting into trucking and trucks getting off route, and I know for a fact that JB Hunt and a couple other companies, if a driver did something like this, it's a termination for going off the routing. So I think a couple things we ought to explore is, and you and I can get together offline, is talking to our representative on RDOT about getting Arkansas State Highway Police, because that's DOT enforcement. You want to get some truckers' attention?
Right.
Let a DOT guy pull them over in this area for violating that. They'll get more than just a ticket for violating truck in an area it's not supposed to be in. Okay. So I think that will be an extra enforcement trip we can use. It's a little tougher because they generally stick to the highways, but I think we can meet with Marie and probably get some help from the new director out there and our representative on the commission. So we'll tee that up. The other thing we ought to check on, and I'll have to do a little research and I'll get with staff. There's a couple of entities that, one called PC Miler that trucks use. And we may be able to talk to Google and Apple too on their mapping to somehow get something in there that's truck. But the truckers use they use multiple GPS type stuff, but there's some industry standard stuff that maybe we can have that route marked as no truck traffic, which might help. And putting my port board liaison, I think we got a grant to study the rail crossings.
Correct.
I don't know that Lindsay was covered, but the amount of rail traffic at Lindsay is not like it is at Fish Dam, which is really causing backups. But I know we're trying to study those grades and figure out when and if feasible to remove that grade with the interaction with the traffic, so we can do that. But yeah, and I think we'll talk to Brian and see what we can do with outreach with the trucking. With Amazon's been pretty responsive. I think they can make sure their drivers don't go that route, especially since the new Fraser Pike. But yeah, I think a DOT violation for a driver will get their attention not to use that route. So that may be one of the things. We'll try to use an all of the above approach, but I'll be supportive of the ordinance as well.
Great. One other thing that was suggested, the city of Little Rock, through the Little Rock Port, has installed hundreds of cameras in the port industrial area. And I don't know if those cameras are capable of reading the license tags on these vehicles, But that might be one way to identify these violators too, where they, receive a ticket in the mail, like I have had done on occasion. But that may be another tool that can be used to circumvent that problem.
If the folks in your community, if they can document, if there's a carrier on that side, a lot of times they'll have an 800 number, a trailer number, a truck number. If you can document that and contact those, we can start contacting the safety departments of those carriers. More likely, it's going to be the same offenders, and when you let them know that one of their drivers is violating a marked road like that, it gets their attention. So,
Right.
That's something else we could do. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions before I sit down? Thank you
so
very
much,
much.
Mr. Doan. We'll now have our legislative update.
All right, I've got a handout coming your way that was literally updated about 10 minutes ago with the filing of our latest update on this. We will start with an update on House Bill 1034, which is an act for the Department of Human Services, Division of Aging, Adult and Behavioral Health Services fiscal year 2025-2026 capital improvement appropriation. This is a bill that we are watching. We're just wondering if that could have an impact on the state hospital here. So far, we don't think it will, but we are monitoring. House Bill 1057 to amend the law concerning possession of a firearm by certain persons and to permit the restoration of the right to possess a firearm to a nonviolent felon. We are working with the bill author on an amendment to this. Chief Helton had some concerns on firearms getting into the hands of certain individuals, and so the bill author is willing to work with us, so we are working with that bill author. House Bill 1121 to repeal the law concerning the transfer of tax forfeited lands to state institutions. There's been no movement on this bill. We have used this process in the past to acquire land, so the city does have some concern over this bill, but it doesn't appear to be much to be concerned with right now. House Bill 1130 to amend the law concerning permitting for residential construction, to amend the Fast Track Permits Act, and to allow a local government to create a housing improvement zone. Planning does have concerns over this piece of legislation. As I mentioned last week, we want planning to still have control over the inspection process. So we will be following this bill and looking at what we can do to make some amendments there. House Bill 1148 to create the Arkansas Privacy Act and to address certain images captured by unmanned aircraft systems. I'm very happy to announce we were actually able to work with the bill author to create some amendments to this bill so that our employees would not be subject to any type of prosecution should they accidentally capture any type of images that are mentioned in this act. So we were a little bit concerned about that, but we are pleased with those amendments. House Bill 1149 concerning vegetable garden protection. We would still like to see some type of an amendment here so that code enforcement can still regulate vegetable gardens should we need to do that. So we are working on that. House Bill 1352 to amend various laws concerning actions related to certain foreign entities. This is the Sister Cities Bill. House Bill 1445, an act to prohibit certain restrictions on the regulation of short-term rentals. We do have a concern about this one because we do think that that is not something favorable to the city. House Joint Resolution 1006, an amendment to the Arkansas Constitution providing that a governmental body shall not use state or local funds to enter into a contract with a lobbyist for lobbying purposes. We are opposed to this amendment and have stated such. Senate Bill 3, the city attorney has said that he doesn't feel at this time that it will apply much to the city of Little Rock, but we are watching this. It has passed both the House and the Senate. It has been re-referred to the Senate Committee on State Agencies and Government Affairs, where we do expect it to be passed again out of that committee and back to the Senate. Senate Bill 91 to provide that local government units shall have no authority to regulate or control the amount charged for a rental application fee or rental deposit for private residential or commercial properties. This is not something the city currently does, but we would like to maintain the ability to do so in the future should we want to, so we are opposed to this bill. Senate Bill 182 to require a local government to continue to operate under the annual appropriation ordinance for the previous year until a new appropriation ordinance is adopted. This one has been delivered to the governor. We don't anticipate this being any major consequence to the city, but could have some impact. Senate Joint Resolution 15 was just filed a couple of moments before this meeting. This is a constitutional amendment concerning economic development in the state of Arkansas and authorizing the General Assembly to provide for the creation of economic development districts to promote economic development. This is a Senate Joint Resolution that is supported by the Downtown Partnerships and others, and it amends some antiquated bond rules that are in the Constitution and allows for the creation of economic development districts, and the city will be in support of that. And that is your legislative update. Any questions?
All right, seeing none, we'll now have the half associate stormwater drain manual presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and the board, for having me. I'd just like to give a quick update on the Little Rock Drainage Manual update. To start, to start, I just want to give a little refresh on the purpose of the update, and then we'll go into the revision timeline that we've gone through so far, and then talk a little bit more about the recent stakeholder meetings we've had and the compromises we've made with them. So just to reiterate the purpose of this manual update, it's really to just more effectively and adequately address future flood risk, new stormwater practices, and state and federal regulations. So the goal is to reduce flood risk, to improve water quality, and to protect streams. And this update is part of the city's policies and programs to reduce pollutants in compliance with our state MS4 permit. So all the changes in our manual can essentially, from the old manual to the new manual, can be broken down into essentially these four categories. So there's the submittal procedures, and this is really just to streamline the permitting process. The second category would be runoff and detention requirements. The primary purpose behind those is to reduce flood risk, existing flood risk and future flood risk. The third category, design requirements. So the design requirements also provide a little bit of flood risk, but their main purpose is to reduce future infrastructure costs for the city. And then the fourth category is water quality requirements. So the goal behind those water quality requirements is to improve water quality and to comply with our MS4 permit. So all the changes that we've made to the manual fit into those four categories from the old manual to the new manual. So just to give a refresher on the timeline, back in May of 2023 is when we held our first set of public meetings. And then we had those meetings, drafted the manual, and then in March of 2024, we provided the manual for public comment and held a second set of public meetings. In June of 2024, we held a third set of public meetings to discuss our third draft of the manual. And then July and August, we presented to the Planning Commission and met with stakeholders at the Little Rock Chamber of Commerce. September 2024 was when we first came before the board. And then in October through November, we held 6 additional stakeholder meetings and revised the manual to incorporate all of our agreed upon compromises. And then in December, we received that extension from the Arkansas Department of Energy and Environment to extend our permit deadline until the end of March. And then in January and February, we've held a few additional stakeholder meetings to see what further collaboration on the manual we could get to. So just the kind of the background of how this manual has been written and compiled. So our first draft, we based that off of our benchmarking exercises, looking at other cities and both in the state of Arkansas and regionally. And we based it on industry-backed best practices and national data. So the second draft, the main difference was based on planning and development and public works staff comments. We incorporated their comments into the draft. And then the third draft, we incorporated public meeting comments and additional city comments. And then the fourth draft, which was done in November, that was all from those stakeholder meetings that we held in the fall and all those compromises that we made. And then our fifth draft, which we're currently working on and should have that finished this week, that was based on the additional stakeholder meetings that we've had. So I won't go through all these, but these are the summary of changes that we made from the June draft to the November draft. And these are all based on the stakeholder meetings that we held. Back in November, I think I put together a presentation that went into all these in a little bit more detail. But I'd just like to reiterate that all of these items that we changed, essentially every item that was brought to us from the stakeholders, which consisted of a few developers, we moved in that direction to reduce our impact to development. And so each one of these was to reduce the impact of the new manual on development. And then these are the recent changes that we've made over the last couple of meetings. We've changed some methodology calculations. The major item that we changed was adding site design credits. So these site design credits can be used to reduce the required water quality treatment volume. So hopefully to reduce costs and provide a little bit more flexibility to the developers on how they meet the water quality requirements. And so most of these are just green stormwater practices, natural area conservation, stream buffers, and disconnecting those impervious areas so that they're not going directly into the storm system. And then we modified and clarified some general guidelines for storm system design. So this is the summary of the major compromises that we made from our earlier drafts to our now final draft. We changed our runoff methodology to allow the use of the modified rational up to 40 acres and allowing the rational method for offsite flows up to 200 acres. We reduced which storm events need to be analyzed for detention. We went from 6 storms down to 3 storms. And then for water quality, we reduced the amount of water quality treatment from 1.5 inches down to 1 inch or 1.05 inches. And then we also added those site design credits. And then for some of these design parameters, we reduced the minimum easement width from 20 to 15. We allow for a maximum cross slope of 3% for residential streets, and then allowing for steeper side slopes with proper slope stabilization. So through our meetings with our stakeholders, I think we've come to agreement on many items. There's some that we do not have full agreement with between us and the stakeholders. However, this is, we're presenting essentially our professional recommendation on what we believe both meets the requirements of the city, meets the state requirements, and is what is best for the citizens of Little Rock. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much for your hard work and working with the development community alongside Director Jordan, Little Rock Chamber, and both Directors Warwick and Hines to get us to this point. We know it's been about 2 or 3 years and get us here. Director Hines.
Thanks. Miles, a couple of quick questions, because you're right. We've picked the low-hanging fruit, and we're down to that hard-to-reach stuff. And I think some of the rub from the development community comes from DEQ not telling us what the MEP is, and that's minimum
Maximum extent practical.
Maximum extent, right. They leave that to the local communities to set, and so, you know, I guess we've done some work on that. But one of the other sticking points is the 1 acre minimum. I know we're using that as a standard because that's what's in state statute. Is there any restrictions from us to actually making that stricter and going down to 1/10 of 1 acre? So that we capture, you know, existing, because if you look at a 1 acre site, you split it into 2 half acres, it's only, it's a 50% reduction in output, but it's still an impact. But
Right.
it wouldn't be regulated. Do you see where we're going with this?
Right. And, you know, we kind of feel like, you know, we're meeting this state requirement, and we don't really want to, I guess, broaden the scope of what this manual update is for. However, there is nothing preventing us from going down there.
Right.
We just have to be at least as stringent as the ADEQ requirements.
I kind of find it interesting that you say you don't want to broaden the scope when we're kind of broadening the scope and setting an 80% standard because it's in the existing manuals for them, but we don't seem to hold any of our existing permits to those same standards, even though they're in our permits. So that's why I'm saying, so do we get any credits if we become more stricter? And what I'm saying is, I guess if we became more restrictive in what we're regulating down to 1/10 of an acre, which would capture any, you know, 50 by 140 lot that gets developed, and where I'm specifically looking at this is where it happens in the heights where you know, tear down a smaller house, put a lot of more impervious, it has a greater impact on stormwater quality and outflow in those areas where we have some stormwater drainage issues. So I guess my question is, if we did something that was more restrictive, where we're capturing more of a look at that stuff, does it give us any more credibility with our MS4 permit to ADEQ when we submit it?
I don't really believe so. You know, that where that 80% came from is from their general stormwater construction permit and their small MS4 general permits. It's also what we've seen nationally and regionally.
Right.
So we're just kind of basing it off of those recommendations.
But in the state's permit, in our own permit, it says we're practical, right?
To the maximum extent practical.
Right. And so I think that language has to be in our new manual going forward. And I know staff doesn't like that because then they become the arbiter of what's maximally practical. And that's where you got to have the hard discussion with the design professionals and staff. So I think, you know, that's something, has that been added? I know we had discussion on adding language that mirrors.
No, that has not been added. And,
Okay.
and to my knowledge, of all the drainage manuals we've looked at, the drainage manuals that I've worked with, none of them have that language in there. I think it's just to reduce that ambiguity and so that the design professional knows the standard that they need to meet.
Right. So, but you say reduce ambiguity, but the state already has that ambiguity written into its own standards, which that's what we've used, and they've never objected to it, correct?
Well, we haven't really, we haven't put in a water quality component yet.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Any more questions from members of the board? Director Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious as to where we are time-wise with this. When do we have to act on this to make sure that we meet the agreement that we have with the state for the extension of time that we have with this? So where is our?
Our deadline is, I believe, March 31st. That's the reason why we came before you today, to give you all time to digest. Staff has met with the developer community, met with, you know, city board members. I believe what HAF is sharing with you today, this is the finished product. They'll put that into ordinance form. It'll be up to the board to approve it. The deadline is March 31st. I do want to remind everyone, anytime we extend, one, we got to have a approval to extend and from ADEQ. And if there was putting it out there, if members of the board want to extend, that means more money. And so, ADEQ has given us a deadline, March 31st. They graciously want to share appreciation that they work with us to extend the deadline for 90 days, and this is where we are.
Okay, so that means at a board meeting in March, we've got to,
We'll schedule it. The plan is not for this. It clearly won't be on the next agenda, but we want to give you time to digest and get our 3 readings in case, you know, I've seen this long enough to know sometimes it gets stalled out, so we're not going to get bumped up against March 31st. So if we got to have a reading each board meeting between now and March 31st, that's what we will do.
thanks.
Director Hines?
Yeah, one other question. Miles, you know, in our meeting, we had a conversation with the local design professionals. They asked the question if you'd been out and visited any of our actual developments to see stuff in progress, have you had you said you hadn't, so have you had a chance to go out and visit any of our sites where construction's going on to see what kind of measures we're already taking and what that development actually looks like?
Yeah, I've been out to a few. I've meant to try to get out there during a rainstorm, but I just haven't been able to do that.
Okay.
But some of the ones off of Canis.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you. Members of the board will now review the agenda. We have an addition on M1. Want to share appreciation to Director Carpenter and Vice Mayor Wyrick on working on this. I know the community in the Tall Timber area have been requesting this for quite some time. Also want to share on item 11 that's inadvertently put as a deferral. It will actually be on February 18th. So it'll show as a deferral, but it will be on February the 18th for item number 11. Any questions on items 1 through 9? Director Hines?
Yes. I have a couple questions on Resolution 1 on the engineering services for this, as far as cost and what that cost is a percentage of the whole project.
On item number 1?
Item number 1.
Okay.
Wow, this is way down here. You were asking what percentage of the overall?
Right. How big is the project? Is it 850,000 or is it the total cost of the project?
The total cost of all the projects is that they do a percentage of the total cost of we negotiate a price that's typically based on a percentage.
Okay, what's that percentage we're using?
It's anywhere typically around 10% or a little over. It depends on the scale of the project and how big it is.
Okay. Well, that's what I was trying to do, because maybe I wasn't using the top line number. That's why I was trying to figure out what the total cost of the engineering services was for, because it looked.
All right, next question.
I mean, if you could just.
You need the total contract amount of what we're doing.
Right, and I want to know what so we're making sure we're within
Sure.
those percentages, because
Yes,
I
sir.
know we've had some instances where we've gotten design services down to 7-8%. So I just want to make sure we're not, that's money that could be going to actual work versus design. So I wanna
Sure.
make
No,
sure we're
I didn't realize the amount wasn't on there. I'll make sure we get you
All
that
right.
number.
Thanks.
Director Adcock?
Yes. Mr. Honeywell, why are we using this funding for this project?
Excuse me?
Why are we using the targeted community money for this project?
These are projects that the board passed a resolution selecting these projects for the Ward 6. It was resolution number 16405 that was done back in August of 2024. We identified the 4 projects that this engineer is going to be designing, and then we'll be constructing with targeted
Okay.
community
Are
development
we
funding.
doing it in the other 3 wards also?
Yes.
And when would those be before us?
We haven't had those decisions made on what projects they'll be at this point.
And Director Adcock, each member within those targeted community development have been working with staff to identify, and then not only identify, then you go through the process of figuring out what the cost will be before it comes to you. I know Vice Mayor Wyrick's been working on some within her area, and so those will be before at that point in time, but would encourage we can definitely get those ward members to visit with you about that, but they are
Okay,
online.
Ward 2 is also in the targeted community.
Correct.
So what are we doing about them in Ward 2?
Staff is working on that as well. But as clearly as you know, the Ward 2 representative hasn't been able to have those, number of those meetings, but staff is working on that on behalf of Ward 2.
Well, in talking to the neighborhood people in Ward 2, they've not heard anything about this, so. who's
Actually, I
working with
spoke
them?
with the president, one of the presidents of Southwest Subs 2 weeks ago and have spoken with them about it.
Okay, and who is that?
Pam Noble.
Okay. So
Ward
that
6 is fine. Yes.
So that is being done with staff, with some of the presidents of the associations?
No, ma'am. What I just shared with you is that I visited with Ward 2, Ms. Pam Noble, about what's going on in Ward 2 with the targeted community development. The previous, before, there's been several months that the ward members had meetings. I believe it actually happened sometime last year. Staff met with each member of those wards to discuss that. Clearly, at that point in time, actually, at one point in time, Director Richardson was present, but as we got into more details, we know things had to change as far as that. But every Ward 2 person has discussed this with staff, but we are pushing forward on the details as we can, as we've done with Ward 6, and as we brought already before the board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions as it relates to planning items? 10, Director Miller?
I have one on 9.
If you'll, we'll go with Director Miller first, Director Adcock.
Yes, I wanted some presentation on Resolution 9 because I want to make sure I understand what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I'll try to give a quick presentation. Essentially, as you know, there are several, the Arkansas State Procurement has a procurement list that we can, if a company is already on that particular list, we can procure with that company and kind of expedite, not circumvent, but expedite the procurement process, where you don't have to go through a whole RFP process and things of that nature. We can just select from that process. It's been well vetted from the state, from a legal and a financial standpoint. And what this ordinance prepared by the city attorney's office allows us to just kind of more or less clean up, but also push forward as we select more companies from this list. It's more of a cleanup bill, if anything.
So what process do we use now to come before the board and we have to do something? So this eliminates going before this body to make a selection? What?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, you still, it's everything.
One finger.
You still have to go before the board. We're just, again, this is more of a cleanup resolution than anything. You still can, essentially, staff, if there's a particular garbage truck company that we want to select from the garbage truck state list, we select that company. We work with the city attorney's office to prepare the resolution, and then it still comes before the city board to spend those dollars that have been previously allocated in a budget document. So nothing changes for the city board. It just, again, allows more expedited time for us to get construction from contract to execution alongside the city board process for the residents.
So these 13 purchasing contracts that's listed here, is there situations where we add to this? Do we take away from this? How these people on here now?
They get from the state list. They have to, we don't have any control on who gets added or taken off the state list. For instance, well, I won't say that. We've had a contractor that was just in the room who's on a particular list. We have several car dealerships who are on that list. It's more or less for the procurement team or the business development team of private companies to get on the state list because it makes it easier for them to essentially avoid a tenuous RFP, RFQ process where they are submitting bids across the state and across the state. It's just an expediting process. But the
Director
lid,
Miller, it's a tracking issue. I mean, just to make it bluntly, if it came up and told us the Houston Cooperative Purchasing Agreement, we would know about that one because we use it. But there are others that we don't know the names of, and then we've got to check with purchasing to make sure that it is a list. So what we put into place is that once a year, we're going to bring a resolution to you that's going to say, this is what it is. And in the future, when you get a contract where we have purchased off of one of these cooperative purchasing agreements, there'll be a recital that says, in accordance with this resolution after it's passed next Tuesday, we obtain this way. And then that way, we'll have our tracking of it. The finance director and purchasing met with us, and they'll meet with us in January again, and if we've changed it, we'll do that. I'm not going to say that between now and the end of the year, we may not find one that we need because things change. I mean, the big example for me, which is dated now, was when we went to computers and suddenly nobody had any computer list. But that type of thing may happen, and we'll come back for the board for a resolution. What we're trying to do is once a year, at the first of the year, get this to the board, and then throughout the year, have in our various resolutions, we got this from this group, which was approved by this resolution, and then it's easily tracked.
Oh, okay. How much time are we saving with this? Man hours?
In terms of bidding, that's a Nick question. In terms of tracking it down, that's really probably his staff's question, because we call and say, wait, where did this group come from?
It could save us anywhere from 3 weeks to 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
Director Adcock?
Yes, one of you used the phrase "more from across the state." Is this going to, then we're going to buy more stuff from other businesses except in our area, Pulaski County, Little Rock?
Probably, but then you've got to understand, Director Adcock, that there's certain people that don't produce things that we need within the area, fire trucks.
Well, will Little Rock please be put first before we go looking statewide?
No, we don't have that type of a statute that allows for that. But, I mean, to give you an example, there's only, 2 dealers in the state that can even deal with police cars, for example. And they're on this cooperative purchasing agreement. We don't have to go out to a formal bid if we know that they're on this agreement, and we can buy police cars when we need them. That's what this is designed for.
Well, I would hope that we would look for businesses in Little Rock and Pulaski County before we would go to Fayetteville, Springdale, or Judsonia or someplace.
Well, I like Judsonia, but I agree with you on that.
Thank you, Nick. Director Wyatt?
Thank you, Mayor. It's already been brought out what I wanted to bring forward, and that was that whatever is used on these cooperative contracts still has to come to the board. We still have to look at it, and we still have to approve it. It's not anything that's done outside of this boardroom. I'm familiar with these type of cooperative contracts in that you can, if there's something you want to buy, like for instance a car, which was brought up, you can go to the state contract. It's already been through the RFP. Everything's already approved, and you can move forward. And our finance director said a couple of weeks to 30 days, it can save more time than that, just trying to go through the RFP process to find stuff. I know in some of the cooperative agreements, I saw SHI and Omni was one of those, and each one of those have some of the same equipment that computer equipment, things like that. I saw some signs, playground equipment, all those kinds of things that we need as a city. You can go to some of these cooperative contracts, find that. There's already a RFP that's been done. It's sitting there on the contract, and you can grab it up and then do a contract on it and move forward. So I'm agreeable with doing this.
All right, any more questions on items 14 to 15? 11, I'm sorry. What? 11 will be on the agenda. It was inadvertently shared as a deferral, but it'll be on next week's agenda. So it'll be I guess technically, if it'll be a third reading. So for those who may not recall, There was a first reading, and there was a second reading with item 11. Item 11 did not have enough support to suspend the rules for a third reading. You need 8 board members to suspend the rule for a third reading. It will now go for a third reading, and it will take an affirmative vote to pass. Director Wyatt.
I'd like to add M1 to the resolutions, the consent resolutions for next week.
No problem, we'll add that.
Thank you.
All right. Ally, if you'll notate that. Anything on,
Mayor, can I add one thing on that?
yes,
Letters will be sent out tomorrow, probably over your signature, that state the reasons and to the individual commissioners.
I think that's what I signed earlier.
Not yet.
Okay, all right. 13 through 15, members of the board? Seeing none. Anything for the good of the order before we adjourn? Going once, going twice, meeting adjourned.